Hi, I'm Patrick. This is Eric. Together we are just got played. We're at the Cloak and Blaster on a Tuesday night. We just got done playing Ruins of Mars. Join us for little Ruins of Mars.
Yep.
Eric,
Yes.
briefly, there's a lot going on in this game, but briefly, please tell us a little bit about Ruins of Mars.
Okay, Ruins of Mars, you are explorers exploring the ruins of Mars. Does that about cover it?
A little more detail than that.
So, if I had to break this down, this is a kind of an action selection game. So there's each of these different spaces, and on your turn, you take this little puck and you pick one of the spaces and do the actions that are available to you. So each space kind of has a core thing that it does that's based on the tiles that are below it. And at the end of your turn, after you do those things, so these are like collecting resources or moving up on this language track, these shift around, like the bottom one kind of goes up and the other ones move off, which kind of incentivizes using other spaces in later turns. That way, certain spaces aren't better than others for the entire game. And what you do with those resources is there are all these buildings over on the other side of this track that are kind of supposed to represent, as you are exploring Mars, you're finding ancient technologies that then you bring back and utilize for yourself. So each of these buildings kind of provide passive or sometimes one-time benefits that will help you out for the rest of the game. And there's also this language track here that, again, as you take some of these things, help you move up the language track. These get you different points up at the top. Only one person's allowed to be up at the top of any of those tracks, and that gets you points for those. And at the end of the game.
And they also unlock different tech levels too.
Well, yeah, that's actually that's very important. You have to have made some progress on these language tracks to open up purchasing some of the better technologies as you explore Mars. The game ends either when 4 tokens have reached the top of the track, regardless of which players have reached there. If you've got 4 players, each of them gets up to the top of one track, the game ends. Or if one player gets up to the top of 4 tracks, the game ends. Is irrelevant. Or when somebody has filled up all 9 spaces on their board with different technologies that they've discovered on Mars. And at the end of it all, you just count your victory points. You get victory points for being up on the language track, and you get victory points for some of the buildings, like this one here that gets you +4. And I mean, I think that's about it. I mean,
That's
you got
it.
your little board in front of you, and that's where you keep track of your resources. And you do get these radiation tokens sometimes for some of the spaces. So some of the better spaces, the spaces you're going to want to go to more often, get you radiation tokens, and these count as negative points at the end of the game. And whoever has the most at the end of the game gets like double negative points for it. So there's a little bit of somebody else is taking a lot of them, you might take a lot of them too, but then he comes up with some cool way to get rid of all of them, and then you're kind of like, what do I do with all these?
What do you like? What do I do with all these?
What do I do with all these?
You were high on radiation at one point.
I was.
Yeah. Well, that's a good synopsis of Ruins of Mars. If you had to pick one thing you like the most about Ruins of Mars.
I really dug the language track. I mean, I like that whole concept in a lot of games. The one thing that made me think of was Tolkien. That one has a very similar concept where everybody's kind of simultaneously moving up on these tracks, and once you get the top space is only available for one player, so there's a little bit of a race once you get up to the top. And I actually kind of dug that this one added that extra layer where you couldn't purchase certain levels of technology until you had gone up high enough on some of the tracks, which I thought was a cool twist on that.
I did too. I thought it added pressure to the game for sure. I was constantly trying to advance on that track. That strategy didn't work out great for me, but I was trying to advance on that track more than everything else, and it seems like some of those buildings will help you do that anyway. There's a lot to the game. I liked it too. I was going to say the thing I like the most is variable player powers, because everyone's got these variable player powers. But speaking of the variable player powers, there's also really great artwork in the game. And if you've been following it on Facebook or some of the social media, there's been a lot of the artwork being put up there, and I enjoy it a lot. I think the artwork has evolved over the last couple of years, and it's really turned into a very beautiful game. So I'm going to stick with artwork, even though variable player powers was on my plate of things that I really enjoyed.
I do like variable player powers.
And so does Lloyd. If there is something that you like the least, what would it be?
I don't know, maybe this was kind of a first time experience thing, but I think the thing that I like the least is like the buildings over on the side felt very secondary to me, or the technologies that you're kind of discovering out on Mars. A lot of times it was more like at the end of my turn, what resources do I got? Sure, I'll pick up one of those and grab this and throw it on there. I mean, I say that and I've got a pretty full board of these things, but it's still, I never picked them because of the powers, it was because of what I had available to me. So it felt a little secondary there.
I was intentionally trying to pick those based on my powers and what I thought I would need, and I ended up not buying a whole lot. So I understand what you're saying with that. There's great artwork on it, and the thing I would pick if I had to pick something that I like the least would be, although I think the artwork's immersive, and I think it looks good, and it definitely the artwork ties into the theme, I'm not so sure that the theme is cast into my actions in the game. I never really felt 100% like I was, terraforming Mars. Speaking of terraforming Mars, I never felt like I was terraforming Mars in that game either.
No, it's fair.
Yeah, I never really felt embroiled in it unless I was looking at the artwork or some of these really beautiful buildings or some of the other equipment. And by the way, I think this puck in the game is going to be like a little mini lunar lander, and you're going to move that around instead of a little puck.
Yeah,
but
that kind of stuff will probably help.
But otherwise, I really enjoy it, and I think artwork-wise, this game goes a very, very, very long way. I know I said that was my favorite thing, variable player powers, and it just maybe not super tied up in theme. And then with yours, I really like that track as well. So I think that little racetrack adds tension to the game that the game needed, because that put pressure on.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on the artwork thing, or the theme. Sometimes theme can be helpful for kind of getting me to understand what I'm doing in a game, and I never really felt immersed.
Yeah. You weren't suffocating on Mars.
I was not.
Yeah. Well, I'm Patrick. That's Eric. This is the Cloak and Blaster. We just got done playing Ruins of Mars.
We did.
Yeah. I don't feel ruined.
Or very Martian.
Yeah, I did have a bunch of beers, though. I still don't feel ruined.
Does that make you feel Martian?
No. Has to be the right beers, I think.